Hi y'all, it's Annelies, and I have had my iPad Pro M2 11-inch since Christmas of last year, and I absolutely love this thing. If you're returning to the channel, you know I'm a big Hey, I'm trying to talk here, computer. Please be quiet. If you're returning to the channel, you know that I'm a big fan of the iPad. I've made a lot of videos about the iPad, so if you want to see any of those, you can check the links down below. But I got this for myself for Christmas last year. I have loved it for the last 7 months. I have finally figured out like the way I like it set up, how I like my apps laid out, what widgets I want to use, and I know that things might change a little bit because of iOS 17 coming out and having interactive widgets. However, I don't think it's going to stray very far from what I've currently figured out for this iPad, so I wanted to share that with you because regardless of what iPad you have, you might be interested as to what iPad apps I have and what I like to use. But before I throw it to past Annelies, who actually shows you what is on the iPad software-wise, I am going to show you what accessories I use with my iPad Pro. So first of all, let's talk about the case. This is the Otterbox Symmetry 360 case. Now they do make it for, I know, the iPad Air for sure, because my mom's new iPad Air also has this exact same case except in blue. You can see that mine is orange, which matches my aesthetic. My computer also has an orange case. I'm a big orange fan if you can't tell. But I like this case for a couple of reasons. One, it's not bulky, but it is still protective. There is edge-to-edge coverage. The bezel of the case goes a little bit over the screen, so I feel like my iPad is protected in the event that I dropped it, which knock on wood that I never drop it. I don't want to drop my iPad, but I like having a protective case on my iPad just in case. The cover is attached, which is nice, so that way you don't ever have to worry about it disconnecting. It does the whole little roll up and stand business, or lay it down so you can write ergonomically and what have you. It's a great case. Simple, but effective. And then another thing that I like about it is that it has this kind of like Apple Pencil drawer, if you will, on the side, because the second generation Apple Pencil, which is the one that works with the current gen iPads, the way that it charges is through magnetically attaching to the side of the iPad. So this kind of like slot still gives you some open access to the side of the iPad, and when you're not using the case for when you are using the pencil, I guess is the easier way to put that, you can just slide that shut, super minimal. And then as for my Apple Pencil, of course I'm using the second gen Apple Pencil like I mentioned, but you might notice that it's orange, once again, with my whole orange thing I've got going on here. But this is actually like a silicone sleeve that I got off of Amazon. And the reason why I got this is that I think there is a texture difference between the first gen Apple Pencil and the second gen. This one feels way more like matte, and the first gen kind of had this like plasticky grippiness to it. So that way when I was holding it, it felt like it didn't slip out of my hand. But this one, it was like the day I got it and I realized I felt like it was slipping all over the place. I don't know if it's because I hold my pencils weird like this, I don't know. But ever since getting this silicone case, I have loved my Apple Pencil, and it feels like it solved the problem of it sliding out of my hand. As you probably saw, the little Apple Pencil holder fits with the silicone cover on my Apple Pencil, so that's great. The last thing that I have here is this stand. Now I actually have 2 of these. I have one for my phone and one for my iPad, and I love it. It's just like a simple device stand. It just kind of has a little bit of a ledge at the bottom so your device doesn't fall off of it. I like this because it does raise my iPad slightly off of my desk, and it's really great for if you're doing anything like interacting with your iPad, but not necessarily like drawing or writing. As you can see, if I'm putting like a little bit of pressure, it starts weighing it down and moving it down. So if I ever have to like draw on my iPad, or I'm like doing some design stuff or whatever, I take my iPad off and I roll up the cover and I kind of do it that way. But if I'm watching something on my iPad or typing or trying to like reference things, like maybe on my computer but I want emails on here or whatever, this stand is awesome. Also, if I'm FaceTiming on my iPad, depending on who I'm FaceTiming, sometimes I like to have it vertical, and this also makes it very easy to have your iPad in a portrait mode setup, so that's great. So those are all the accessories that I use for my iPad. Nothing really complicated. Most of these things are available regardless of if you have an iPad Pro M2 11-inch or not, like the stand and the Apple Pencil. And like I said, you can find this case in different sizes, but I'll have all of the relevant links in the description down below. Now that I've shown you what is on my iPad physically, it's time to show you what is on my iPad digitally. So I'll throw it to past Annelies to give you a tour of what's on my iPad. Let's start with the top left-hand corner. Up there, I've got two medium-sized widgets. First, I have the weather widget, because I just like seeing that at a glance. And then I have a custom widget from Widgetsmith. I just like having the weather and all of the important time zones for me at a glance when I first open up my iPad right here at the top of my first home screen. Next, I have the Files app, and I feel like the Files app is the finder for the iPad. If you ever plug in a hard drive into your iPad, it will show up in the Files app, and that's how you'll be able to see what's inside of it. Also in Files, I can access iCloud Drive, and I personally use iCloud a lot, specifically for like personal files. So this isn't stuff that I'm necessarily sharing with people, but I like having this also because then I can see whatever I have on any of my devices on this one device. Now, along with iCloud Drive, I am also a big Google Drive user. Now, if you're familiar with the Files app, you would know that you can sign into Google Drive onto the Files app. However, the reason why I have the Google Drive app here is because you can have multiple sign-ons. In the Files app, you can only have one. And I have multiple Google Drive accounts because one I use for more personal things, and the other stuff I use for work things or things that I'm sharing with people. So I have two different Google accounts, and I just like being able to access all of that information straight from here. Personally, I feel like the native Google Drive app is a better way to access your Google things than within the Files app. That's why I have both. Next, I have my calendar app of choice, which is Apple Calendars. Then we have camera. If we move on to the second row, we've got settings, reminders, maps, and FaceTime. I know it might sound silly to have the Maps app on an iPad. However, it's really nice for when you're planning trips. Then in the third row, I have the battery widget. Then I have a utilities folder because I feel like this has kind of come over from all the years of me being an Apple user, and I know that we have the app library now, so folders are kind of defunct. However, I still like having it on my home screen to access just some of like the basic utilities. Moving on from there, I have the Twitch app. Whenever I watch Twitch, it tends to be on my iPad, and if you're looking for some new streamers to watch, I'll put some of my favorite streamers on screen so you can check them out. Next, I've got YouTube, YouTube Studio. YouTube Studio is essential for creators. It just kind of is like your dashboard for YouTube. You can see your analytics, you can respond to comments, all sorts of stuff. And then we have the Photos app. And moving to the last row, I have the Duolingo widget, and it's the small widget because what I love about the iPad is that the small widgets take up the same amount of space on the iPad home screen as the app icons do. So instead of just having the Duolingo app, I have this fun little widget that always changes, and it shows me what my streak is, which yeah, I'm at 426 days, which is just, it's crazy. I can't believe I'm over a year of a streak on Duolingo. I freaking love Duolingo. So there's that. And then we have the Apple Fitness app, which most of my Apple Fitness classes that I take, I use my iPad because it's the largest screen that has access to them, because you can't do it on the computer. I do technically have a projector, but it's not super high quality, and it's kind of pointed weird on my ceiling over there. So the iPad is the best place for me when I do Apple Fitness. I would say the #1 classes that I do on the regular are the meditation classes. Listen, before Apple Fitness Plus, I was not a meditation girly, and I'm still not, but I am an Apple Fitness Plus meditation girly, specifically with Christian Howard. Christian Howard is, I think, my favorite trainer at Apple Fitness Plus. There's something about his voice that is just so calm. He always has these wonderful like prompts during the meditations. You can have short ones, you can have long ones. There's a ton of different ones. Episode 154 is one of my favorite meditations. There's so many on here that I haven't done yet, but I have to say, every time I do a meditation with Christian, I just always feel like that's how I feel. I just feel refreshed and rejuvenated and at peace. And if you are looking to get into meditation, listen, Apple Fitness Plus, I have done meditations with a bunch of trainers on here. I just love Christian. But I have a special place in my heart for Christian Howard. 10 out of 10 would recommend. And then next in this row, I have the Apple Books app. I like having Apple Books because when I have PDFs that I've downloaded, or specifically books that I've found on the internet for free through things like Project Gutenberg, I've downloaded them and put them into the Books app. So I have like Tales from Shakespeare, let's see, some different things that I've had for school, and a lot of theater things, a lot of plays, a lot of scripts. I have a few audiobooks that I've purchased through iTunes, and the way that you play them now is through the Books app. Next to Books, I also have the Kindle app. If you watched one of my most recent videos, I did a review on the Kindle Paperwhite, and I love my Kindle, don't get me wrong. However, the first time I ever interacted with the Kindle world was through my iPad. And there are some books that I actually like viewing on the Kindle app on my iPad. In particular, there's this one book that's called The Actors and Performers Yearbook. And what's nice about it is it has a bunch of things like agencies, websites, just information for being a performer in the UK. And if you have the book on Kindle on an iPad, I can actually click on the links in the Kindle app on the iPad, and it will take me either to a new email if I'm emailing somebody, or I can click on the website and it takes me to that website. I like having the Kindle app specifically for that. Next, I have the Duolingo Math app, which if you are familiar with Duolingo, which is a language learning platform, we have Duolingo Math, which is a math skills training platform. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a learning platform, and there are different settings on it. Like when you sign up, you can either say you're a beginner or you're just trying to keep your skills sharp. What I like about Duolingo Math is it just has questions like this, like round to the nearest 100. Okay, 241 would be here. Check. Yeah. Round this number to the nearest 10. Oh, criminy. 150? No, what? Oh, 140. See, okay, clearly I don't have super sharp math skills anymore since not being in school where I needed to do math. I like having this app just to kind of keep my brain a little sharp, you know? And then next I have Discord. So moving from the home screen to my dock, I have Messages, Apple Mail, Safari, because yes, I know, unpopular opinion, I'm not a Google Chrome girly, I'm a Safari girly, through and through. And then we have 3 Notes apps, which I'll get to in a second, Apple Notes, Notability, and Good Notes 5. And then I have Apple Music and Procreate. So to address the notes situation, I have 3 Notes apps because I just haven't found the one perfect one for me yet. To go into Apple Notes, I like Apple Notes because it's a great way to just jot things down. So if I have an idea, if I'm taking notes on the Apple event, for instance, and I just want to type things, I don't want to have to like make a new document in Pages. I just want to open the app and click new and then it's done. There's no file name, no nothing. I can just type. That's what Notes is for. Also, it's a great place for checklists, shopping lists. It's just great. Thoughts out of your head, quote you hear in real life. Oh, hey, that's a movie I want to watch later. Apple Notes it. Then I have Notability. And Notability I have been using for like a decade at this point, and I love it. I would say the main thing I use Notability for is for reading and annotating PDFs, primarily scripts. Because if you don't know, I am an actor, and for the last last 10 years, anytime I've gotten a script digitally, I've put it into Notability, and this is how I access it. I like it because there's a lot of great highlighter options. You can have a lot of different colors. I highlight my lines. If I am multiple characters in one show, I assign colors to each character, so then when I'm on that page, I can kind of like, color coding is something I use a lot in my life. It just helps me and my brain organize things. So for this character that this character was pink, and so that's what the color I highlighted my lines and my name. Another thing that they just updated recently is this tape feature. So I can cover all of my lines in tape. I think it's designed for studying, which works out great for learning your lines, because if I don't have somebody to practice my lines with, I can tape over my own lines and hide them so I can kind of practice learning my lines. And then if I don't know what the line is, I can just tap on it and it reveals what's underneath. There's also a bookmarks feature that I can then bookmark all the pages that I'm on and easily scroll through those, or I can just scroll through the whole document. I feel like it's really straightforward and simple to use. The main notes page is just kind of a long list of notes, so there's no kind of like clear organization here. I would love if there were folders of some sort, but we do have the subject dividers on the left-hand side. But like I said, Notability for me is mainly for accessing PDFs of any sort. Then I have Good Notes 5, and I use that, I would say, primarily for doing handwritten notes on my iPad. What I like about Good Notes 5 is that you can organize things not only by folders, but also by notebooks. One of the things I don't like about Good Notes 5 is that you can't just have a plain note. It can't just be one thing in isolation. So that's why I like Notability, is you can just kind of create one singular note that's not connected to anything else. But what Good Notes has actually been really nice for is for school. So I just finished school, and what was really helpful during school with Good Notes is that I had a dedicated folder for certain subjects or for certain things. So for instance, I have this folder for my voice reels. So when we were recording our voice reels, we didn't have to learn those lines. We were reading off the page. I liked being able to type out whatever voiceover I was doing and then annotate it here. I also had one notebook that was just for notes around my solo piece, and I like the backgrounds that you can get for Good Notes for writing. It's just a little bit clearer for me. There's the bullet background, there's a line background, I think there's even a grid that you can do, but there's just something about like handwriting that I've liked better on Good Notes. So that's why I have 3 different note-taking apps, and I hope that one day I will just be able to whittle it down to one, but in the meantime, that's what I've got. And then like I said, we have Apple Music, and then Procreate is like the essential iPad app. If you have an iPad and you have an Apple Pencil and you don't have Procreate, what are you doing? I don't care if you're a graphic designer or an artist or just somebody who likes to doodle, you like to do photoshopping, Procreate can do all of this for you. So Procreate is amazing for so many reasons. You can do photoshoppy things with it. So with this image here, it was originally too narrow for Instagram. This is the original image, but I just kind of duplicated the image, sliced it up, mirrored it, and now it fills up the full square. Perfect for Instagram. I also like doing little doodles here and in there. So I have this like random drawing I did. I also learned how to make a bubble through a YouTube video. How cool is that? Like I showed you earlier, I do a lot of edits for Instagram. So I did this kind of collage of photos of my mom and I wanted to write on the picture. So I did that in Procreate. I often edit thumbnails in Procreate, which is just great if you want to do any handwritten elements. You can even make GIFs in Procreate, but there is so much you can do with Procreate. And I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface and I'm constantly learning new things. But if you like doing any sort of digital art in any sense of the word, you gotta get Procreate. I think it's like $5 or $10 in the App Store, but it is the best $5 or $10 I've ever spent. And now I wanted to move on to my second page of my home screen. So I'm gonna talk about the widgets first just because they're so huge, and then we'll move on from there. So starting with the top left, I have the podcast widget. I just like the fact that it shows you some of the new episodes of podcasts that you're subscribed to that have come out. I don't often listen to podcasts on my iPad, but I just kind of like having that at a glance. And then the other widget I have is another widget with Widgetsmith. It obviously looks a lot like the one on my front page, except I like this one because I also have, instead of the UK time zone, I have the Netherlands time zone where I also have family. And then it gives you an at-a-glance calendar on there too. So it's not as important to me to have on the front screen, but I kind of like having that calendar nice and small, but like at a glance on my screen. And then starting with the apps, I have Storygraph. This is a way to track reading. So if you're familiar with Goodreads, it's that, but it's independently owned and not owned by Amazon. So I personally like the interface of it. You can have your to read pile. There's also recommendations. You can track your reading. There's also a page here that shows you your reading stats. So this year I'm at 8 books. I've read 3,351 pages. And then you also get all these different graphs for like the paces you like to read, fiction or nonfiction, genres. I like looking at this stuff, especially at the end of the year. And then we have the Masterclass app. So you've probably heard of Masterclass before or seen their advertisements. It is a subscription for this kind of like really high quality online classes. I say classes with air quotes because it's not like a class that you are live participating in. It's kind of like all these different people have made almost like a seminar, if you will, on certain topics. One of the classes that I really enjoy on Masterclass that I'm kind of in the process of watching and taking is this class from Neil deGrasse Tyson, and it's Neil deGrasse Tyson teaches scientific thinking and communication. And so there are kind of like lessons or episodes that range anywhere from like 5 to 20 minutes, at least for this course. Sometimes there's ones that are longer. Episode 5 is about cognitive bias. We've got the scientific method where Neil deGrasse Tyson just kind of talks about these things, and it feels like he has notes, but it's sort of off the cuff. What's cool is it's a little bit like of a personal insight to these either experts in their field or celebrities, frankly. You also have like, I have this screenwriting one with Aaron Sorkin that I really loved, especially while I was writing my own solo piece. Yeah, he teaches screenwriting, which I was writing a play, but in each of these episodes, he has like intention and obstacles, story ideas, developing characters part 1. So he kind of talks about his process of developing maybe characters that you recognize from shows that he's done, like The Newsroom, or and I suddenly cannot think of anything else Aaron Sorkin's done. He's one of my favorite writers, and I can't think of anything else he's done. The Social Network, I think, right? Yeah, what else? Oh, A Few Good Men, Steve Jobs, like that's stuff that Aaron Sorkin's done. And so he brings up some of his work and the experience of writing and notes that he took during that process in these classes. There's also like Howard Schultz on business leadership, Usher, The Art of Performance, Reba McEntire, country music. So they kind of span all over the map. It's a very interesting platform, and it's definitely not cheap. However, if you are, one, interested in any of these topics, it's really cool to hear from experts. But also, if you're a fan of any of these people, it's really cool to kind of like see a little peek into their mind that they don't share in interviews, because it's not an interview. You're talking about a topic that they're an expert in or really well versed in. So I enjoy Masterclass. That is a long-winded way to say look into Masterclass if you're interested. Then we have Libby. That's how I get my library books on my Kindle. The ESPN app for tracking sports. And then in the next row, I have D&D Beyond, which this is an app for my Dungeons and Dragons stuff. If you are a D&D player, you're probably familiar with this app. But if you aren't, if you've ever heard of Dungeons and Dragons, you have characters that you play and you have kind of a character sheet. And D&D Beyond is a way to store that character sheet digitally. And then you can also like update it as you're playing. So this just kind of has all my stats for my character. So when I do D&D, I at least have everything here and I can update it as we're playing. And then we have Audible for audiobooks, Pages, Rosetta Stone, another language learning app. Then we have Final Cut Pro. It just came out for the iPad, I want to say a month ago, and I haven't played with it a lot, so it's hard for me to say what I feel about it or give any sort of review. I think that will be a future video, is talking about Final Cut Pro on the iPad, but I'm glad that Final Cut's finally on the iPad, but I need to play with it more, so I can't really speak on it much. And then we have Numbers, and in the next row I have Disney Tsum Tsum. This is just a friggin' game that I've played for like ages, and it only works in like the portrait mode, but the reason why I like playing it on the iPad is it's such a big screen that it's like easier to play the game. Oh man, I don't want to do an extra download now. We don't have the time for an extra download, but Disney Tsum Tsum is very much like, it feels Candy Crush, Bejeweled. It's in that family. It's just a fun, silly game that I like playing on my big old screen. And then the next apps that I have are Adobe Lightroom, Translate, and Patreon. Adobe Lightroom is my editing app of choice. I don't edit on my iPad a ton, but when I am traveling, it is what I edit on over my phone just because I like the bigger display. And Lightroom is just a more accurate and detailed way to edit photos. But otherwise, I mean, I'm not gonna go into my app library because there's just so many silly apps in there. And I'm a very big proponent of download the app. You never know when you're gonna need it. So I often don't delete apps from my iPad, and I'll download an app that maybe I use once and then I just keep it on there. So my app library goes for miles and miles of apps that I don't always use. But with that is what is on my iPad Pro. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it was interesting to you. If there's any questions that you have about any of the stuff that I talked about in this video, maybe I didn't go as in depth in something as you were hoping, or maybe you wanted to know why I chose a certain app over an app that you like, whatever it is, if you want me to make an in-depth video about any of these apps, let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear any of your feedback or suggestions. I love making videos that y'all want to see, so all suggestions are welcome. I love my iPad. Like I said, I use it like every day, and I'm pretty happy with the configuration that I have on it now. I know with iPadOS 17, there's gonna be a lot of things that are probably gonna change because we'll have the introduction to widgets on the lock screen and the interactive widgets. There's a lot of things that might change with how I use my iPad, but for now, I'm really happy with the setup. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Lets YouTube know and lets me know that you enjoy my videos. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I am almost at 4,000 subscribers. If you enjoy videos like these, if you enjoy tech videos, if anything in the world of my wildlife or technology, or also sometimes where that merges sounds interesting to you, please subscribe. And before I go, I just want to take a brief moment to thank all of my Patreon supporters. The people you're seeing on screen right now are my top tier patrons, and if you want to be like them and have your name permanently tattooed on the end of all of my videos, you can go to patreon.com/Annelies. Thank you so much to all my patrons of past, present, and future. And with that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Stay beautiful, have a marvelous day, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!